Okay, let's start. Good afternoon. First of all, I thank you for keeping your seats until this late hour. Before starting our session, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Ho Kang-il. I was the former Korean ambassador to Ireland and also to Bangladesh. And recently, I served at the United Nations Memorial Cemetery in Korea, which is located in Busan. And I am very honored today to play a role as a moderator. And as you know, today we expect 3 presenters, but unfortunately, the Professor Asif Husainov, he was not able to join us today. So we have today only 2 presenters, but luckily we have 3 panelists as scheduled. Well, the theme of this the session is peace building and conflict resolution. It is a very important issue. And when we look around the globe, we can easily notice that the world has been plagued by numerous regional conflicts, both large and small. And we all know there is no quick or easy remedy to cure those problems. But seeking and exploring better alternatives to address those issues is always a worthwhile endeavor. In this regard, we are happy to have our experts, 2 experts. We invited 2 experts, and we have the opportunity for them to share their insight with us. Who will go first? The professor? So I will give the floor to Professor Miyamoto first.
Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful conference. My name is Satoru Miyamoto. I am a researcher on the history of North Korea, politics and diplomacy. And I am a professor at Seigaku University in Japan, and currently in Seoul as a visiting research fellow at the Institute for Far Eastern Studies. Now, let me begin my talk right away. North and South Korea were known as one divided nations. However, since the end of last year, there has been a major change in North Korean policy. So, everyone knows North and South Korea as the ROK and the DPRK are 2 states under international law because they joined the United Nations separately in September 1991. However, in the relation between North and South Korea, they have been recognized as one divided states. So there were 2 governments of the same nation and divided states. So, and diplomacy and North-South dialogue are different from because just so North-South dialogue is not even diplomacy, because North and South Korea are the same ethnicity, same nation, and highest national goal is to eventually reunify the two Koreas. The North-South dialogue was treated as a dialogue between the domestic political force. But since the end of 2023, it has fundamentally changed. North Korea has decided to abandon reunification and treat North and South Korea as two states. In perception from the North Korea, North and South Korea are some separate states. So, they changed their recognition from divided nation from separate states. So we have to analyze the North Korean document. So the North Korea. In North Korea, several debate about the reunification. From 5 years ago, some opinion that must separating from South Korea was rising in North Korea after North Korea and the United States summit in Hanoi. So we can know it from their text of the North Korean text. So when North Korea said Republic of Korea, is meant insurgency, like an insurgency against the North Korean government. But sometimes North Korean newspaper states Republic of Korea, but it is it with the double brackets. With double brackets, Republic of Korea means it's not. It's not it's not a separated country. It means just insurgency. So we need to find the Republic of Korea without double. We need just Republic of Korea in the North Korean text. For example, so Rodon Shimbun, it is the organ of the Workers' Party of Korea, said we have never recognized the South Korea as normal country with the appearance of sovereign states, but rather as a Republic of Korea. But the Republic of Korea directly imitating the name of the country at the end of the Joseon feudal dynasty, which was disastrously declined as a pharaoh as a press of destruction to the world powers due to the country's excessive power and treacherous attitude. In May 14, 2014, this Republic Korea with a double bracket, so it means not independent country. It's just insurgency against North Korean government. But 2023, December 3, 2003, then Workers' Party of Korea first recognized Republic Korea as a separate country states. This is a foreign, and this is a statement of Foreign Ministry of DPRK. Then states. The states the Republic Korea without a double bracket. So then North Korea recognized South Korea is ROK. South Korea ROK is a separate country. This is ROK is different from the DPRK, so we can know they decided the beginning of the December 2023. North Korea and North and South Korea are separate countries. So then end of the December 2023, Kim Jong-un, supreme leader of the North Korea, said, looking back over the years of inter-Korean relations, anyway, they give up the unification. And next year, January 15, 2024, Supreme People's Assembly called the Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un, and Kim Jong-un said the North and South relations have been completely fixed into the relations between two states hostile to each other, and the relation between the belligerent states, not the consanguineous or homogeneous one anymore. So they decided South Korea is a different country from the North Korea. And the next day, Central TV of the North Korea, North Korea displayed the North Korean map. It's January 15 is the whole Korean Peninsula is the North Korea, but Japanese January is 16. Northern area of Korean Peninsula is North Korea. So now North Korea gave up the unification, and it means peace or not. First, so ROK, Republic of Korea for DPRK is independent states or another. I know that North Korea, DPRK, socialist states always think the independent country is independent from the empirism. So South Korea, ROK is a puppet of the United States, United Empires. So, North DPRK think themselves independent country, independent states, and sovereign states. But Republic of Korea is puppet of the United States. So, ROK is not independent country. So it is very, very dangerous for the ROK because it's the reason for North Korea can attack the South Korea because South Korea is not independent country. So Republic of Korea is separate but not independent states. So how does North Korea decide the ROK as a ROK is separate states? So I said the Workers' Party of Korea decided it the beginning of December. So we read many Rodon Siemens articles. So I found some important meeting. Meeting is held on December 1 in 2023. So I explained before yes. I found this article. So, Workers' Party of Korea, WPK decided the December decided the treat South Korea as a separate country on the December 1. Of course, North Korea reported. Not North Korea didn't reported it, but we can understand it. We can understand it, assuming that the party, the North Korea, assuming that the North Korea, the Workers' Party of Korea decided it December 1 on December 1. North Korea will angry for the North Korea criticized South Korea because South Korea government suspended Article 1.3 of Agreement of the Implementation of the Historic Panmunjom Declaration in the military field on November 2022. So 2018. I'm sorry, November 22, 2023. So North Korea next day, November 23, North Korean Defense Ministry announced they they canceled all of this agreement. So North Korea treated South Korea as a separate state because of the South Korean government decided decision, South Korean decision. So I heard the I heard the 2020. I heard it in 2020 that some North Korean people said that they will give up the reunification and treat South Korea as an enemy country. So because they angry for the President Moon Jae-in, because Moon Jae-in suggested the North Korea and the United States dialogue. In the beginning of the dialogue between the South and the North, North Korea don't think that the dialogue between North Korea and the United States. But President Moon Jae-in suggested the dialogue between North Korea and the United States to Kim Yong-nam and Kim Yo-jong. They came to the presidential home in South Korea. So Kim Jong-un accepted this suggestion, but it failed. So North Korean people think Moon Jae-in is a liar for the supreme leader Kim Jong-un. So they got angry for Moon Jae-in and South Korea. So then Kim Yo-jong said that on March 15, 2020, we have to separate from the Republic of Korea. But then Kim Jong-un don't accept it. Kim Jong finally accepted it. December 2023. So now we have two choices: reunification or peace. So some U.S. people or South Korean people said that North Korea will attack South Korea. But it's wrong. Because North Korea, DPRK minimizes their territory, and they always say that they have no idea to attack the South Korea. And because the DPRK is think that the giving up the reunification is a peaceful. So reunification brings the competition between the South and the North Korea. But if DPRK gave up the reunification, South and North Korea don't need to compete. So competition brings a war in the Korean Peninsula. So North Korea said it's peaceful way. So abandoning the reunification is peaceful way. So the abandoning the reunification brings the peace in the Korean Peninsula? No, because Kim Jong-un said, if South Korea attacks North Korea, they will counterattack against South Korea and occupy South Korea too, like Russia try to occupy the Ukraine. So we need to be ready for the war, but it will bring the peace to Korean Peninsula. But no, so I think the war will not happen in the near future. But in the long run, preparing for war will prevent the war. We must understand it. So, but looking to the future, reunification, which would lead to disappearance or either government, south or north. Yeah, it could be cause of war. If so, North Korean logic that abandoning reunification would lead to peace is unstable. So, reunification or peace. Dear my friend Korean, that choice is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Miyamoto. Thank you for your contribution. I think Professor Miyamoto's presentation provides a compelling analysis of the North Korea's changing stance on the reunification of Korean Peninsula and its implication for the inter-Korean relations. And I share your view that while the abandonment of reunification by the North Korea may reduce immediate tensions on the Korean Peninsula, the ongoing hostility between the South and North still leaves room for potential conflict. Okay, so once again I thank you, and I will give the floor to Professor Selik. Would you please?
Yeah, thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello, everyone. As being the last speaker of the conference, I will try to keep it short. I promise it. Thanks for still joining us at the very last session of today's conference. My name is Hatice Çelik, and I'm one of the faculty members of the Asian Studies Department in Institute for Area Studies, Social Sciences, University of Ankara. And I came from Turkey, definitely. So it's really my pleasure to be here and to participate in this great conference and great forum. So when I first invited to the forum, actually, I was thinking about to maybe present a different topic. But then in the first week of September, I was in Brussels and had a chance to visit the EU and NATO headquarters and also the Korean embassy in Belgium. So I noticed how important the EU and South Korea for each other. Not only South Korea, but the Korean Peninsula in general. It's quite important for the European Union. So I decided to make a presentation or share my insights regarding the role of the European Union in the Korean Peninsula politics, because usually when we have talk about or when we have think about the Korean Peninsula politics, we usually remember or think of the four great powers, or let's say four powers, namely the US, China, Japan, and Russia. But of course, in addition to those four powers, actually the European Union is a quite important actor regarding the Korean Peninsula politics. And I think we can argue that European Union as an actor, as an international actor, is a more neutral actor as compared to those four powers regarding the Korean Peninsula politics. So actually this is a very new research topic for me, so it's a very tentative presentation. And let me also say that there's a very good quality and high numbers of literature on this very specific topic of European Union and its relations with the Korean Peninsula politics. But today I will try to give you a general outlook of the picture and also try to share the main pillars of the European Union in establishing or in constructing the relations with the Korean Peninsula, not only South Korea but also the North Korea. So let me start with the agenda of the presentation. So I will briefly talk about the EU as a neutral diplomatic actor and what are the main pillars of the relations regarding the Korean Peninsula politics. Mainly they are the denuclearization efforts, the human rights advocacy, economic cooperation and sanctions, humanitarian assistance, sustainable development and technical expertise, and collaboration with other international actors. And at the end of the presentation, I will try to share my future insights or let's say future recommendations, both for the EU and also both for Korea's. So as I said in the beginning of the presentation, we can consider the European Union as a more neutral diplomatic actor as compared to other actors operating or let's say neighboring the region like the US, China, Japan and Russia, because all of you are quite familiar with the political issues between those two powers and both North Korea and South Korea. But as I said, EU can be considered as a more neutral diplomatic actor. But still, however, the EU has strategic partnerships in Northeast Asia, and it has actually formed many alliances through different mechanisms. When I say alliances, actually it also includes the connectivity frameworks or strategic partnership, etc. So those are like China, Japan, South Korea, and while Japan and South Korea welcomes its presence, China remains relatively hesitant due to its different political values. But EU promotes stability, free market principles, and democracy, but also encounters internal and geopolitical obstacles. And when we have a look at the diplomacy and trade area, we see that the EU is a major proponent of the rule-based trade in Asia, balancing formal dispute resolution with active diplomacy. And this dual approach actually has made the EU one of the key economic partners in the region, although its also geopolitical role remains complex. And definitely EU is one of the important markets, international markets, not only for South Korea, but also the whole, let's say, the countries in the East Asia region. And soft power is also has a role in regarding these all issues. EU has contributed to peacekeeping efforts in different regions of the Asia in general, but of course it's seen as a more let's say relatively modest security actor in Asia because it's mainly focusing on soft power and promoting or try to promote non-traditional security and multilateral cooperation aligns with its broader diplomatic goals. And public diplomacy here is another important, let's say, field for the EU to have a role on the Korean Peninsula politics because the EU boosts its visibility through educational and cultural exchanges, such as, for instance, the EU Center in Taiwan, which enhances understanding of its policies in the region. And I'm sure you are also quite familiar with that. Many of the not many, but some of the European Union countries have different international campuses in all over the Asia region. So it can be, as I said, the education diplomacy can be also a kind of a good way to promoting mutual understanding of each actor towards education diplomacy. So, and if you have a look at the security and geopolitical strategy, actually the EU tries to play a kind of comprehensive role in regional security, and especially if you consider the current international system and the crisis like the Russia-Ukraine war, and also the deepening relations of North Korea and Russia in recent months has quite a kind of alarming impact on the European Union because the deepening relations between North Korea and Russia actually might have a direct impact on the nature or let's say on the course of the Russia-Ukraine war, which actually EU is quite concerned. And let me also briefly talk about the denuclearization efforts. The European Union is quite interested in promoting the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula as a whole, and it has been supporting the denuclearization through like multilateral diplomacy, or like it's giving diplomatic support for non-proliferation, and also it has been a supporter of the six-party talks. And in the morning sessions, we already have talking about the six-party talks. Unfortunately, it didn't bring any kind of like concrete results at the end of the talks, but still it was a good way to at least keep the communication, because I believe it's always better to be in the dialogue or keep the communication with the actors instead of not talking to each other. So in a way, although as I said, it didn't bring any kind of concrete solution or concrete output, it was a still important process, and EU was definitely in favor of it. And as I said, there has been different denuclearization frameworks offered by the EU in general. And considering the human rights advocacy, we can say that the human rights is, or let's say has been, one of the main pillars of its perspective towards the Korean Peninsula, especially North Korea, because human rights violations or human rights issues has always been on the agenda of EU, not only regarding the Korean Peninsula, but in all over the world in general. So human rights is always one of the most important topics considering the EU's perspective towards North Korea. And of course, it's directly related to its normative power, because EU is trying to use its normative power to advocate for human rights, focusing on the humanitarian aid, institutionalized dialogues, and also mutual multilateral approaches, and promoting value-oriented policies. And it's also try to focus on, or let's say provide some international forums, or create international forums to be a base, or let's say to be mechanisms for human rights issues to be discussed. But here, the human rights issue is an separate issue, and also the humanitarian aid issue is another one, and I will be coming to that point too. And if you look at to the economic cooperation and sanctions issues, I think we have to divide South Korea and North Korea into two here regarding the Korean Peninsula. The EU and South Korea has a kind of economic partnership since actually in 2010. Both sides signed a free trade agreement, but the agreement entered into force in 2015. 5 years later, the agreement was signed actually. And it was kind of also including the global issues like climate change and non-proliferation, and it definitely enhanced the trade and economic relations between these two actors. And regarding the sanctions on North Korea, actually, it's important to see how the EU is trying to balance its policy on North Korea, because at the same time, it supports the sanctions on North Korea as part of its partnership with South Korea to have a kind of cut on nuclear ambitions, but while still providing the humanitarian aid, because the EU is trying to balance its pressure. It's pressuring maybe via sanctions, but also it's trying to keep the human rights issues or let's say human rights issues on the agenda. And regarding the potential for North Korean economic reforms, the EU has been mentioning that they are quite willing to support economic growth through trade and investment, but they are waiting for North Korea to undertake some reforms. So I think that both sides is kind of expecting some concrete steps from each other. When we have a look at the impact of sanctions and economic cooperations, actually North Korea's trade, especially with China and South Korea, shows resilience despite sanctions. The EU's participation in sanctions emphasizes its commitment on global security, while its humanitarian efforts highlight a soft power agenda. So as I said, it's a kind of dual approach. On one hand, the EU is trying to keep its sanctions on North Korea, but on other hand, it's also trying to provide humanitarian aid, because the state level relations is kind of different from the society level relations in the eyes of the European Union. So Humanitarian assistance, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, has been one of the main pillars of the European Union in its perspective or of its perspective regarding the Korean Peninsula politics. The EU actually has a long-standing history of providing aid to conflict zones, not only North Korea but in general. It's also focusing on the elevating chronic food shortages, medical aid, and also disaster response. And despite challenges from sanctions and North Korean regime. Especially if we remember the 1990s famine and the food shortage in North Korea, EU has been one of the suppliers of the food via the World Food Program, actually. And also NGOs are quite active and actually try to be quite active, mainly the South Korean NGOs. Supported by the European Union and other international donors, play a very crucial role in overcoming the logistical challenges to deliver aid, because they focus on vulnerable groups like children who are quite unfortunately vulnerable in terms of food shortages and like kind of like famines, etc. And the EU is trying to engage with more like NGOs also, like in providing the humanitarian assistance. And of course, there are some challenges in aid delivery because mainly the North Korea imposes like severe restrictions on the humanitarian agencies, and they are kind of like limiting their ability to deliver and monitor aid. So despite these obstacles, the European Union remains a significant donor, working with international organizations to address malnutrition and health crisis. So. The sustainable development and technical expertise can be regarded as an important, let's say, pillar regarding the EU's perspective on North Korean Peninsula politics, especially the green energy cooperation, renewable energy in North Korea, and sustainable development goals and agricultural and environmental sustainability has been mainly the four, let's say, four main pillars of sustainable development and technical expertise in which, or let's say, via which the European Union is trying to keep the relations alive and also kind of like try to deepen the relations with North Korea through energy cooperation, or let's say sustainable development goals, achievement, and also agricultural and environmental sustainability. And also EU is trying to kind of like cooperate or collaborate with other international actors. And like they are trying to engage in multilateral forums like the East Asia Summit and like the United States, China, Russia, and Japan. They are trying to kind of like sustain the peace and solidarity within the East Asia region in general through like collaborating with other international actors too. So as I said, the EU collaborates with major global powers, including the US, China, Russia, and Japan through multilateral mechanisms to promote peace, security, and non-proliferation on Korean Peninsula, contributing to regional stability and crisis management. And regarding the future outlook and what might be the future, let's say, nature of the relations, or what might be my recommendations within this changing international system, and unfortunately it's full of crises currently, and the EU should have a more active role regarding the Korean Peninsula politics, because especially as I mentioned before, regarding the Russia-Ukraine war, actually, and the current deepening relations between North Korea and Russia actually has an alarming impact on the EU side, because the relations between North Korea and Russia are getting more deeper and deeper, and which might have a direct impact regarding the defense and security relations, because we all know that Russia has been under kind of like sanctions regarding the arms and some other like security and defense issues because of the Ukraine war. But Russia is trying to kind of like get rid of this, the impact of the sanctions through establishing new alternatives, or let's say new partnerships, especially like North Korea, because if they get deepen their relationships, it might be providing new, let's say doors, or let's say possible mechanisms for Russia to supply, or to be able to supply more weapons or more like security related things, and it might have a direct impact on the Russia-Ukraine war. So in this sense, one of my suggestions is to, like regarding the EU and Korean Peninsula politics is for EU to continue to have a dialogue with North Korea, although sometimes the relations are ups and downs, but it's always better to get in dialogue and to keep the communications. It will. I'm sure we are not able to see concrete results or concrete outputs, but as I said, it's always better to keep the dialogue between these two actors. And also regarding the South Korea and EU relations, I think the EU should promote or let's say work much more harder to deepen the relations with South Korea. For instance, one might be, one solution, not solution, but one kind of suggestion might be to establish a kind of EU-South Korea connectivity framework maybe, because you know that EU-China and EU-Japan has different connectivity strategies and connectivity frameworks. So why not South Korea has another one with the EU? Of course, it might be necessary for the South Korean side to see some kind of concrete results or concrete expectations from such a framework, but still it might be a good, let's say, idea to have a kind of connectivity framework which will be serving for more kind of solidarity between EU and South Korea. So I think it's my end of presentation, and thank you for listening to me. I will be happy to have your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chalik, for your very comprehensive presentation. Traditionally, in dealing with the North Korean nuclear issue and the inter-Korean relations, EU has not been considered as a key partner or key player because it has been often overshadowed by the US and China. In this regard, I believe Professor Chalik's presentation sheds fresh light on the EU's role, as you pointed out, as a neutral partner in this important issue. And at the same time, I cannot agree more with your view that the EU can contribute to this important issue because EU has its strengths in leveraging its soft power through diplomacy and multilateral engagement. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Then our presenters, they finished their presentation. So now the floor is open for our panelists. Who will go first? Yes, please.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for your patience till the last panel, and you're still here. I will start with, according to who presented first, Dr. Miyamoto, talking about peace or reunification between both Koreas, and he made some observation. As I understand, Dr. Miyamoto able to understand Korean, speak Korean, if I'm not wrong, and he observed North Korean news and also possible accesses to even TV news, as I understand, and do it regularly and very intensively. So it shows very fresh developments regarding to what's going on in North Korea. So solely his perception of presentation was how developments in last year, because I see it is mostly 2023, 2024, which is good, it is fresh, developments about perception of North Korea towards South Korea. I think that the benchmark for this development and change maybe started since rapprochements which started by mediation of President Trump, when was very big positive expectation that two countries may have approach each other and making further development for peace treaty. And Professor Miyamoto actually mentioned about Hanoi meeting where President Trump also participate, but expectation not became a reality, and after that, sharply situation changed. And regarding to that, we even see what type of development happened, rhetoric change. But I have several questions regarding to them. Your presentation. The first question, you mentioned that North Korea regularly saying that South Korea is not a country, and this is not a country just puppet of imperialism. There's something who is following the policies of Western, mainly maybe United States. Okay, does it new mention? Is it new? Have it been something different before the 2023, 2024? I guess that there was eternal perception of North Korea towards South Korea. What's new about this mention? Second, you say that North Korea amplify such notion like South Koreans, not the same nation with North Koreans. Yeah, we can even say in terminology that Joseon and 한국 사람 이거 다 알아요. But in any case, what they mean when they say no same nation? Is it in context of modernization, or they imply something else in this notion? What do you think? And third, you regularly talking about messages of Kim Yo-jong. I understand that Kim Yo-jong extremely important person. She is regulating propaganda issues. And does it mean that what you say that North Korea mentioned about South Korea, that it's not the state, it's not the nation, and so on, only for domestic usage, not a message for the South Korea? Can it be that only for the domestic usage to making propaganda towards North Koreans, or it's also a message which they expected to be heard by South Korea? If so, then what expectation of North Korea from this message? And lastly, you put the picture into your presentation. I like such type of issues. It is easy to observe because social science has no laboratory. We have no any possibility to go, for example, North Korea. And here you see this Nalshi temperature about North Korea. It was January 15, 2024, and January 16, 2024. It's changed. The map has changed. Page 153. Actually, it is contradictory. Before January 15, they show whole peninsula. Now they show only North Korea. It seems that actually they recognize South Korea as a state, did not recognize. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Miyamoto, will you respond to the question? Or after question?
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and thank you very much for, first of all, I would like to thank the presenters, both of you professors, for your excellent presentations. I found them very highly informative as well as very insightful. And I think both presenters offered their analysis, both on the political dynamics surrounding the Korean Peninsula, but each of you had a distinct focus as well as involving different actors. You concentrated more on the two Koreas, and Professor Hatice has shown another, third actor, the European Union, as a variable, which I think this diversity actually enriched our session and making it more comprehensive and insightful. So I will now briefly comment on each topic and pose a few questions. First, I will begin with Professor Hatice. I think your presentation focuses on exploring the multifaceted role of the European Union in Korean Peninsula politics, particularly its efforts to balance diplomatic neutrality, denuclearization, also human rights advocacy, and economic cooperation. I think I believe you have effectively illustrated its intricate geopolitical role in the region. As you thoroughly mentioned, I totally agree, and as I'm quite interested in the human rights issue about North Korea, I think your perspective on EU's role and endeavors in human rights advocacy has quite enlightened us about the issue that we might have been forgotten for a couple of years. And actually, you mentioned about the EU as leveraging its normative power to champion human rights in North Korea, even in the face of North Korea's reluctance to engage in that issue. And this particular aspect actually has historically posed challenges to our governments because we have some complex things between the two Koreas, as well as we have some domestic political constraints when it comes to the issue of North Korea. So I believe that the persistent efforts of the EU in spearheading initiatives for humanitarian aid as well as the human rights reform will undoubtedly prove beneficial for South Korea because the EU can say what we have pressure on saying. So they can take the initiative on which we have troubled in, so which is the human rights issue. So that was my brief comment about your presentation, and I have prepared two questions for you. Firstly, concerning the EU's efforts in human rights advocacy. Actually, you mentioned about the EU's dual strategy of advocating for human rights while offering humanitarian aid to North Korea. It presents a delicate balancing act given the fluctuating stance of our government. Because when it comes to the liberal administrations, we have often sidestepped from the human rights concerns, while when conservative governments, for example, this government comes, we have aligned more closely with global human rights advocacy standards. So, in your personal view, against this backdrop, how should the EU navigate this kind of dual role effectively with our constraints in the Korean government issue to ensure some substantial progress in this issue? And the second question is about Turkey's role. I think you are well aware about our center's project because we have introduced to you about our project. So it is focusing on the creation of unification-friendly circumstances by fostering cooperation and communication with our neighboring states, particularly Turkey, Central Asian states, or our northern countries. And I think everybody in this room share the idea that achieving unification cannot be accomplished in isolation just by South Korea or solely through bilateral endeavors between the two Koreas. So in this context, could you propose some practical ideas for enhancing this kind of cooperation and communication between South Korea and Turkey within the framework of Korean unification? So in order to create this kind of unification-friendly circumstances, how can Turkey help us to build those kind of circumstances? And for Professor Miyamoto, I think you have meticulously delved into the historical division of the Korean Peninsula with a focus on the evolving relations between the ROK and the DPRK. And your depiction of the DPRK's shifting perception concerning the notion of separate states is particularly well articulated in your PPT. I also thought that the use of the double brackets you mentioned, I think that was very interesting to see the concept in our eyes. Also, you elucidated your elucidation on how the DPRK's conception of the independent states it differs has likely provided valuable insight to both our foreign participants who are here and also some of the Koreans who are in this room who may not be well versed in North Korean rhetorical ideas. And as Professor Libranovich also mentioned in the same line. So I have prepared one question for you. As previously mentioned, our center's project concentrates on the creating unification-friendly circumstances through fostering cooperation and communication with our neighboring nation. And in this endeavor, I think Japan has a very significant role, as a very close neighbor to both Koreas, actually. you have the historical background with both North Korea and South Korea. And also, we also share the historical precedent of collaborating in the early 21st century through the six-party talks platform. But despite losing the momentum, I think South Korea and Japan, in conjunction with our mutual ally, the United States, have consistently collaborated in addressing the North Korean issues. So in this context, I just wanted to ask you, as a Japanese scholar, could you provide some insights into Japan's reaction concerning the DPRK's newly changed stance on the Korean Peninsula unification issue and regarding the separate states issue? Because you currently have a new government that just came into in the beginning of October, as far as I know, right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I want to hear about your opinion about the Japan's reaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation, and it's an honor to be here. And I want to start by saying that I'm not an academic expert, but a journalist. So my approach might not be as academic as others, but I hope to share my thoughts and experiences based on what I've seen in my reporting. And I'm going to be brief. And talking about peace building and conflict resolution, I think I have to point out that the situation is still very tense on the Korean Peninsula. Even yesterday, North Korea threatened that their artillery units near the border have been ordered and is ready to fire. And North Korea has accused South Korea of sending drones over its capital, Pyongyang, to drop leaflets critical of leader Kim Jong-un. So situation now is very tense. And major powers like the US and China have a lot of influence over the peninsula. And the peninsula often becomes a hotspot in their competition. So if we want to reduce tensions, I think it's important to focus on dialogue and diplomacy. And we should reopen communication channels, and we should provide humanitarian aid. And I think small confidence-building steps are very important since they can lead to bigger discussions in the future. So, and another point I would like to emphasize is that we should never give up on the goal of North Korea's denuclearization. They are pushing for an arms reduction talks rather than genuine denuclearization, and they aim to be recognized as a de facto nuclear state. So I think the international community should never give up on the goal of denuclearization, and we should never allow them to take that path. And that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. And I also have comments and questions to each presenter. And first, as for the Professor Miyamoto, I completely agree with your view that North Korea sees South Korea as a separate state, but not truly an independent one. And on another point, you mentioned that since North Korea has given up on reunification, the likelihood of them starting a war against South Korea is very low. But what if their intention isn't to start a war, but isn't there still a possibility that a small unintended incident can grow into or escalate into a much larger clash? So I would appreciate your answer to that. And also for Professor Selig, as you mentioned, human rights have always been a core value of the EU. But however, sanctions we impose to North Korea to push them toward denuclearization often end up making everyday lives of North Korean people very miserable. So it's like it's creating a dilemma. So how can we balance between pressure and protecting human rights? So that's all for me. Thank you.
I thought that we will just one by one, so let me also mention about presentation of Dr. Chelik, the role of the European Union in Korean Peninsula politics, and that was very descriptive and very detailed explanation of European Union relationship with both Korea, and in this regards, like it is explaining political, diplomatic relationship, economic relationship, and also about efforts of European Union towards, let's say, mediation, facilitation between two Korea. Here also in the cooperation with the third parts also explained like how possible to do it more effective. And Dr. Chelik mentioned that European Union tried to be maximum neutral in order to making her efforts regarding to different subjects. I have several questions because if we talk about European Union as an economic actor, okay, they no doubt because it is supranational level, and that means they can act as a solely actor in international area. But can we able to tell about you as a diplomatic actor or political actor, since because they don't have still supranational level of foreign policy? If you look to the common foreign and security policy of European Union, we can see that it's still on the intergovernmental level. And I made some research and I saw that not any single mediation effort of European Union since they became the European Union in 1992 were not successful. They had only successful case in negotiating about nuclear collaboration with Iran, but when administration of Trump came to power, so it's also failed. As also I can include the efforts of European Union about Armenian-Azerbaijan approach. It's also failed. So does it mean they can be successful because they are not single actor and 27 countries has different interests towards Korea, and including human rights issues, including denuclearization, because France itself is a holder of nuclear power, and how it will be successful. And another issue maybe can be equations. For example, you told about some European Union attempts like making financial assistance or different type of assistance to the North Korea. I checked their site. Since 1995 to 2022, they made 136 million euro, and it's only 500,000 per year, which is not big sum. And do you think that their type of providing assistance can be so attractive for North Korea in order to accepting the mediating role of European Union in regards of, let's say, what will going on next in the agenda with South Korea? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, thank you for the Ibrahim. I'm sorry, Ibrahim. So, the Dr. Ibrahim. So, it's a difficult question. But I cannot reply to you. But I can give you the hint. I knew the previous session talk about the what is Korean. So Korean diaspora. So how do you think the North Korea is a diaspora of the Korean or not? So I knew North Korean nationalism is similar to Japanese. And the South Korean Japanese nationalism is similar to the German, because the national type of nationalism is two: French type and the German type. German type is nation. They think nation as family. French is not. French think nation as a ideology group. Yeah. So Japanese nationalism consists of the ideology that the Westernism in 19th centuries from the Meiji Revolution in the 1868. So So the Japanese move to the foreign country is foreign people. So the Japanese American, Japanese French, Japanese German is we Japanese think that they are German or American, not Japanese. So but Korean think Japanese Korean American is Korean. It's different, perfectly different. North Korea think the Chinese, Korean Chinese, not Korean. Because the North Koreans think that so DPRK citizen means DPRK citizen have to know the socialism or communism. So North Korea, so North Korea accepted the South Korean type nationalism in the 1986. Yes. So then Kim Jong-il said Kim Jong-il said that North Korea have to accept for the South Korean nationalism for the dialogue between the South and the North. So, but originally, North Koreans don't have the South Korean type nationalism. So Japanese type nationalism. So North Korea. So North Korea saying that North Korea. Well, now North Korea thinks South Korean nationalism is different from North Korea. So they fear South Korea is different nation. So, and of course, North Korean got angry for President Moon Jae-in, because the fight of the summit between North Korea and the United States. So North Korea think North Korea decided the separate nation between South and North Korea, and it's not domestic propaganda, not only domestic propaganda, but also the international propaganda. So, the Rodong Shimbun, the newspaper organ of the Workers' Party of Korea, is for domestic. But the KCNA, Korean Central News Agency, is international. It is for international propaganda. So separate South and separate countries propaganda is broadcasted in Rodong Shimbun and both of Rodong Shimbun and KCNA. So North Korea hope every country recognize North Korea is not ROK. But North Korea is a socialism country. So they think independent country and perfect country, and so maybe North Korea think Japan also puppet of the United States, and South Korea too, and maybe Taiwan too. So they think North Korea thinks that their enemy country, so Japan, the South Korea, and Taiwan, the enemy country. But Taiwan is part of China, and South Korea is so by last year part of North Korea, but now part of the United States. So if South Korea try to talk with North Korea as a separate country, not South-North dialogue, but diplomacy. So North Korea recognizes South Korea for peaceful country and independent country. But now, I don't know. If South Korea try to negotiate with North Korea, maybe South Korea can talk with North Korea in the third country, for example, Mongolia or the United States or United Nations as a separate country, another country. I think it is a good best way for North South Korea. So now everybody thinks that North Korea will attack the South Korea. It's very so there the tension between the South and the North. But North Korea don't fear the tension now. Only South Korea and the United States feel the tension between South and the North. And I think I want to say, don't worry, the North Koreans and North Korean spirit. But we need, of course, we need to think about North Korean nuclear weapon. Of course, but I think Professor Park Kyung-jun. So I think we have no way to resolve the nuclear issue of the North Korea. So we need deterrence against North Korea. I don't know how to get the deterrence against North Korea, but some South Koreans insist that South Korea have to develop a nuclear weapon, but I don't think so. But some people think that the United States bring the nuclear weapon to the South Korea. I don't know it's a good way or not. It's a South Korean choice. And Professor Iju-song, I'm sorry. Professor Iju-song, thank you for the Japanese ask for the Japanese stand. So I explained the Prime Minister Ishiba's thinking. So Prime Minister Ishiba visited in North Korea in 1990. So I met him several times, and I heard his story in North Korea. Of course, I can't say all, but I heard Ishiba felt the North Korean image in the first step, first visit in North Korea. It is ancient Japan, old Japan, before World War II. Yeah, the nation as a militarized nation. So I feel that the success of the Japanese empire is North Korea. So, but Ishiba's Prime Minister Ishiba think that North Japan have to talk with North Korea because we have many issues. So, abduction issue, nuclear issue, and or normalizing the diplomatic relations. But now, now the Ishiba administration faces the opposition from the public opinion. So no, maybe Ishiba administration cannot normalize diplomatic relation with North Korea. But so Ishiba said Japan have to build the office in Pyongyang for contact with Japan and North Korea. So I think Ishiba is a very Ishiba is a realist, supreme realist. So now, before when maybe okay, I met him this year, and he said all politicians in Japan don't try to normalize diplomatic relations with North Korea. So maybe he won't, because now North Korea is not South Korea. North Korea is not ROK. So now Japan has diplomatic relations with ROK, but now Japan can have diplomatic relations with DPRK too. So Ishiba want to try, but now public opinion in Japan opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Maybe I can start with my colleagues' questions and comments regarding with how EU can kind of balance or approach this regarding this advocacy issues like human rights. I think regardless of the government type, like either the liberal governments or the conservative governments are in power in South Korea, I think EU should be kind of try to apply or let's say pursue a kind of constant and stable human rights advocacy. I mean, it doesn't have to be kind of changing all the time, but it should be kind of sticking to a definite and kind of constant human rights advocacy issue. So it will be, I think, in the long run, it will be much more helpful and beneficial for North Korean people indeed. So, and regarding the Turkish perspective or any kind of Turkish contribution for this unification, let's say, issues, of course, when you are living in Turkey or when you have a look at to the Turkish foreign policy agenda, of course, Korean Peninsula politics is not one of the top, let's say, agenda items, because we have already been living in a quite challenging international environment, the neighboring region. So in this sense, it's honestly speaking, as I said, Korean Peninsula is not one of the top priority of the Turkish foreign policy, yet it can be still have a kind of an important, let's say, role regarding the relations, because, for instance, through maybe kind of education and academic investment between South Korea and Turkey, and increasing the people-to-people connectivity and kind of making, or let's say, try to increase the awareness among the Turkish society, considering the Korean Peninsula politics, would be in the at least mid-term or let's say long-term, would have a definite impact on for the people to have a kind of perspective towards those Korean Peninsula politics, because for instance, I'm trying to encourage my students, and actually they already have been quite impressed by the K-wave and the K-pop, K-drama, so they have a quite interest in South Korea, but I'm trying to also direct them towards different issues regarding for instance, the inter-Korean relations or any other topics related to Korean Peninsula. So in this sense, it might be a long way, and it might be really kind of not an easy one, but as I said, I mean, the unification and that kind of things, unfortunately, nothing happened at one night, and it will definitely take time. So one goal might be to increase the awareness among the Turkish society regarding the Korean Peninsula politics, so that maybe in time the agenda, the Turkish foreign policy agenda, would also include the Korean Peninsula politics more in the future. So. considering Ms. Park question, honestly speaking, it's a very difficult question. But really, I totally agree with you. When you have applied like sanctions, it's also directly have an impact on the the ordinary citizens, or let's say the society itself. If I'm not wrong, I remember one of the articles regarding the sanctions. Actually, if I'm not wrong, maybe the title of the article was like, "Do the sanctions really work?" If I will check it after the panel, actually, because I think it was argued that the sanctions actually is not working on the governments, or let's say on the states that you have been like imposing sanctions. So in this sense, it's very difficult to balance the sanctions and the kind of the human rights issues, etc. But I think either the UN or the European Union or any other state who is imposing sanctions should be more kind of like balanced, and should be considering maybe not to like kind of like targeting the society, but maybe the regime itself more. So it should be very carefully chosen and very carefully implementing the sanctions. As I said, it's a very difficult balance, and I think if we have kind of like find the solution to balance this kind of like dilemma, it will be an answer to many questions regarding this sanctions and like human rights issues. And regarding Professor Roshan Ibrahimov's questions and comments, I definitely agree with your like comments, and I'm not arguing that EU can be a kind of like mediator between North Korea and South Korea. Rather, EU can play a role, maybe a kind of like trust building mechanisms through different, like, let's say, tools or mechanisms between two Koreas, because as you said, it has like many member states, and it's quite difficult for them to agree on a single foreign policy perspective and regarding Korean Peninsula. But here my kind of like emphasis is that since any tension or any kind of like aggression on Korean Peninsula, when such a thing occurs, it will directly pull China into the picture. And like pulling China into the picture means that the whole world will be somehow like kind of like impacted or kind of like influenced, because we have seen during the pandemic that when the China has imposed kind of like closing the kind of economy regarding during the COVID-19 pandemic, all countries somehow like having some impacts on their own like national economies too. So in this sense, if any kind of like aggression occurs within Korean Peninsula, as I said, it will directly pull China into the picture, and it means that even the EU, like because EU, China has kind of quite important like economic connections and dependencies on each other, and EU has noticed during the pandemic that if you concentrate or if you turn yourself into a kind of like too much dominant, or let's say not dominant, but too much dependent only one actor, one like kind of supplier, which was China for many countries and even for the EU, then it has definitely negative impacts on your economies. So in this sense, maybe Korean Peninsula is not directly on the agenda of EU, but since the Korean Peninsula is directly linked with China and Chinese foreign policy, etc., so it also has an interest for like EU. As I said, it might be instead of being a mediator, maybe trust builder can be a better kind of like role for the European Union. Regarding the economic kind of like help or like providing some assistance, it might not be attracting the North Korean regime or North Korean, let's say, state in general. But in general, if you if the EU keeps up is a kind of like constant kind of like humanitarian assistance, at some point I'm kind of like optimistic it might have at least even small, maybe, but it might have some influence. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 6 more minutes to go. So if I may add one comment to our panelist, Park Hyun-ju, she emphasized the importance of dialogue. And I believe the importance of dialogue cannot be overemphasized, because from my personal experience, I served the 3 years in Dublin, Ireland, and if you recall, about 30 years ago, the headlines of world news at that time, sometimes, from time to time, were dominated by a bloody terrorist attacks by IRA, which is Irish Republican Army, because it is a northern Ireland, the regional conflict, and that kind of old, during the 30 years of regional conflict, over 3,000 people were killed due to the terrorist attacks. But that kind of savage attacks has ended because in 1998, a Good Friday Agreement, so-called Belfast Agreement, was signed. So that Good Friday Agreement in 1998 brought an end to that kind of, brutal terrorist activities. And what is the keys to make a success of that kind of agreement? The key was dialogue and also trust building through dialogue. So I believe the dialogue is an essential part of achieving any kind of peace, lasting peace. So I would like to say again, I fully agree with your view. So we are now coming to our end. So if you have any other comments, if not, then I will close the meeting. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.